Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to our fourth session of For the Beauty of the Earth. I'm really excited to have you all here this evening. Just before we get started, just so you all know, this session is being recorded. So if you have any concerns about your face being in the recording when it's shared out, please just let me know and we'll make sure to meet any of your needs. That way, I'll put my email in the chat here for anybody who doesn't have it. So yes, my name is Nicole Litwiller. My pronouns are she, her. For anybody who's not familiar with that, we often make assumptions about a person's gender, and sometimes those assumptions are incorrect. So using people's correct pronouns is a way of showing respect. And if you'd like, you are welcome to add your pronouns to your name in your Zoom box by hovering over your video box, clicking the three little blue dots, and then selecting rename, and you can add your pronouns to your name if you'd like to do that for our time together. My title with the Center for Sustainable Climate Solutions is Climate and Racial Justice Program Coordinator. So I have been helping put together this series of webinars that we've all been enjoying over the past couple of weeks. A couple of reminders just with Zoom etiquette. I know we are over a year now into this pandemic, and so a lot of us are probably familiar with Zoom at this point, but just a couple of reminders. Please remain muted while there's a person talking, just to eliminate any disruptions. If you would like to view things in a particular way, you can go to the top right corner of your screen, select the view button, and you can either view in speaker view, which will highlight the person who's talking, or you can view in gallery view and see all of the people's faces who have their video turned on. And then one last thing, while Vonetta is sharing with us this evening, if you have any questions that come to mind while she's speaking, you're welcome to type those into the chat. We'll have a time for Q&A after she's done sharing, and so I will facilitate that time and keep an eye on the chat with any questions that come in. So like I said, you are here for this fourth session of For the Beauty of the Earth, which is an interactive webinar series. And we've been exploring the intersections of climate and racial justice, and we're going to continue that this evening. And like I've said before, these themes are very intricately connected, and there's kind of a never-ending, I keep finding new ways that these themes are connected, and so we're going to keep exploring those during this session tonight. So for the format for this evening, we are first going to hear from Vonetta, who will share with us tonight, and then we'll have, like I said, a time for Q&A, and then for anybody who'd like to stick around, I hope you'd like to, because this is one of the cooler parts of a session like this. We're able to have small group discussion about what we've heard from Vonetta and start thinking about how some of this might apply to our own lives. So before moving into any of that, I'm going to continue with a bit of a ritual that we've been doing in this series and read a prayer that has been adapted from Carol Penner. And so I invite you to join me in this time of prayer. And if you'd like to close your eyes, you're welcome to do that. If you want to mute your video screen, you can do that as well. And just, let yourself feel whatever feelings come up for you during this prayer. Notice what might hit you differently if you've heard this before, but just take some time to be grounded in this evening. Creator God, hear our prayer for settlers everywhere, for people living on land stolen and traded unfairly from Indigenous peoples. You know our cruelties, our violent erasure of cultures and histories, our cavalier dismissal of treaty rights, our personal prejudices, our institutional racism, our defensive disinterest. We are part of a colonial system so insidious, those who benefit refuse to see it, even when it's in front of our faces. You are a God who names, a God who hears. You know the name of every missing and murdered Indigenous woman. You hear the cries of every child separated from their family. You know the original names of every mountain, river, and blooming flower. You hear the earth groaning as she is torn and broken, her holy balance polluted and poisoned, and yet she continues to give. Breathe into us your winds of disruption, your great spirit, an imagination that breaks cycles of domination by rearranging landscapes, upsetting tables where money is counted, and emerging in new patterns, embodying your radical love. Creator God, give us the courage to seek justice, love mercy, and walk humbly with you toward the liberation of Earth and all of her beings. Amen. Thank you for joining me in that time tonight. And we're also going to continue again. If you know the names of the Indigenous people who inhabit the land that you are, who previously inhabited or continue to inhabit the land that you are joining this Zoom call from, I'd invite you to type the names of those people into the chat. And if you don't know the names of those people, this is an invitation and an opportunity to do some research, learn a little bit more about those histories of the people who were on this land before, and many of whom still remain on this land and continue to face forces of erasure and destruction. So we'll take some time to type these names into the chat and honor them this evening. Thank you, everyone. And feel free to keep adding things in if there are additional things that you'd like to add. So, like I said, this evening we will be hearing from Vonetta Storbakken, and I'm very excited to learn from her this evening. So I'm going to just introduce Vonetta briefly here and then let her take it away. So Vonetta Storbakken is co-founder and executive director of Radical Living, an asset-based community organization in central Brooklyn that builds community around food, green spaces, and sustainable practices in environmental and social justice issues. Most recently, she co-founded the Brooklyn Peace Center with her husband, Jason. Vonetta earned a BA in theater arts and minor in business from SUNY Stony Brook and an MS in urban environmental systems management from the Pratt Institute School of Architecture. She received a fellowship from Pratt Community Center where, among other projects, she served to educate religious institutions and community organizations on topics related to retrofitting, lowering energy bills, and maximizing efficient, safe, and reliable service. She also assisted stakeholders, community leaders, and senior staff with organizing and facilitating participatory planning events. Vonetta recently completed a term as chair of the Peace and Justice Committee of the Atlantic Coast Conference Mennonite Church USA. She has served on numerous boards and has volunteered and served at grassroots organizations in Brooklyn and throughout New York City. She is committed to the work of engaging, educating, and equipping Brooklyn youth to bring about transformation in their communities and the world. So please join me in welcoming Vonetta with us this evening.
Thank you, Nicole. I'm glad to be here. Let me start by sharing my screen. Nicole, are you able to see my screen?
Yeah, looks great.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So Nicole, thank you for your patience. Everyone, thank you for your patience. I really appreciate that. Nicole, I want to say thanks to you and the Center for Sustainable Climate Solutions for inviting me to share about Radical Living. Before I start the presentation, I would like to do a quick content forecast. So here is what's on the agenda for tonight. So I'll do a brief snippet of Radical Living Youth Program, and midway in the presentation, I'll go more in depth about what Radical Living is about. I'll continue with Bedford-Stuyvesant, turbulent but rich history, I'll talk about radical living curriculum, and depending how much time we have, I'll show a short documentary, or Luke will show a short documentary on radical living program. So why radical living? The word radical comes from the Latin radix, which means from the root. Today, the word radical is commonly associated with revolution. We believe that gardening has the potential to be revolutionary on a personal, communal, and global scale. In the 1960s, like many predominantly African American neighborhoods in the United States, the Bedford-Stuyvesant neighborhood of Brooklyn, New York, suffered redlining, urban decay, and violence of many sorts. Seeking to address the social and economic injustices, local community stakeholders organized the first community development corporation, the Bedford-Stuyvesant Restoration Corporation. In 1967, Elsie Richardson, a community organizer and activist who lived in Bedford-Stuyvesant, was one of the key figures in development of the Restoration Corporation. She was noted famously saying to Robert Kennedy, who was touring Bedford-Stuyvesant at that time, that the issues were studied to death. What we need is bricks and mortar. Senator Robert Kennedy was visiting Bedford-Stuyvesant to assess the effectiveness of President Johnson's war on poverty. Elsie is the woman on the left with Shirley Chisholm. Bed-Stuy has a rich political history. Chisholm was the first African-American congresswoman and the first woman to run for presidential office and gain electoral votes. Her campaign, Unbought and Unbossed, ran during the 1971 presidential race. She's among the local and global persons whose stories we share and celebrate in community. Elsie and the community leaders' organizing work, slow-going but consistent, has resulted perhaps inadvertently in a community that is now attractive to developers, which has its pros and cons, of course. And while many people from outside of the community following the current wave of gentrification have moved into the neighborhood, people of color, example, African Americans, Caribbean islanders, and others from the African diaspora continue to have limited access to the benefits and privileges that many gentrifiers take for granted. One such issue that I have worked steadfastly to address through radical living and in partnership with other local stakeholders is access to healthy food options. According to the New York City Health Profiles, for every one supermarket, there are 57 grocery stores, which are essentially small corner stores with food items. If you're from New York, you usually call them bodegas. A report conducted by the USDA in 2010 estimates that nationwide, 23.5 million people, including 6.5 million children, live in low-income areas that are more than a mile from a supermarket. Out of the 23.5 million, 11.5 million are low-income individuals in households with incomes at or below 200% of the poverty line. While Bedford-Stuyvesant is inundated with grocery stores, the access to healthy and affordable food is limited. In 2010, President Obama's Healthy Food Financing Initiative sought to address the lack of healthy food options in underserved communities. The initiative aimed to increase healthy food choices in food deserts and other low-income communities by opening more stores that carry healthy food. Michelle Obama's Let's Move campaign was designed to work along with the initiative. As a result of this initiative, almost half of the grocery stores in Bedford-Stuyvesant were upgraded. Storefronts were replaced with all glass windows and nicely lined shelves. Fruits, as well as niche and organic products, were stocked to attract newcomers to the neighborhood. However, these upgrades did not improve the quality of life for low-income residents. Many of the organic products were expensive, and affordable items still consist of sugary snacks and beverages and processed foods. These unhealthy food options are notable health risk to African American communities and other underrepresented ethnic groups. Compared to their European American counterparts, African Americans are more likely to get diabetes or other diet-related diseases. Consuming sugary foods and drinks add weight to the body, which can reduce insulin resistance, thereby increasing the risk of type 2 diabetes. According to the New York City Community Health Profiles, Bedford-Stuyvesant has the highest amount of obesity, diabetes, and diet-related diseases compared to other neighborhoods in New York City. In addition, many children living in neighborhoods where healthy food access is limited are more prone to attention disorders and behavioral issues. Some of the factors that impact healthy food options are gentrification, transportation and distribution cost of goods, low-income households, and single-parent homes, and systemic racism. One of the adverse effects of gentrification is that the price of food products increases because there is a demand by higher income earners moving into the community. While this increases healthy food options for some, many are still unable to afford the organic, locally grown, or fair trade food options, thus perpetuating limited access for those who remain on the margins. According to the Food Bank, food insecurity in Brooklyn is the highest compared to other boroughs. In neighborhoods like Bedford-Stuyvesant, where gentrification is high, food insecurity has seen the highest increase. Another factor, as I said previously, is the transportation and distribution cost of products. Lastly, single parents households are too overwhelmed and exhausted with having to work long hours and taking care of the family to spend time preparing healthy meals. In situations like these, parents usually choose to feed their kids quick food like fast food or frozen dinners. In 2015, I co-founded Radical Living Youth Program to address these health disparities and environmental issues in Central Brooklyn. The Radical Living Youth Program partners with Calvary Fellowship AME to use their green space and kitchen to teach young people how to grow and prepare their own food. The young people start the program in mid-June. However, before the kids start the program, the work begins each year in early March and continues until early November. Our program has significant impact and importance in Bedford-Stuyvesant for several reasons. People of color in Bedford-Stuyvesant are disproportionately impacted by economic, health, and environmental disparities. By engaging, educating, and equipping youths, we are able to support their development as they make healthy life choices and positively impact the broader community through creating green spaces and developing sustainable projects. Radical's Living mission is basically to foster vibrant relationships across faith and cultures to positively impact the health of Bed-Stuy residents. and to work with faith-based organizations and community stakeholders to implement environmentally sustainable strategies for global impact to help the environment. Our target population and potential partners are the community of Bedford-Stuyvesant, Brooklyn, faith-based organizations, other Indigenous organizations and Bloc associations, and individual community leaders. Our need is to develop green spaces, increase healthy food choices, raise up a generation of urban farmers, and lastly, to strengthen partnerships with FBOs and the community they serve. So Radical Living Youth Program for 2020. We were able to quickly adapt and pivot our program to adhere to local health and safety guidelines for COVID-19. Our program was held outside and transitioned to an online platform such as Zoom and Google Hangout. Through these platforms, we led sessions on gardening, climate change, cooking sustainable, and more. We also provided a reflection time akin to the circle time at the start of every session, and we explored games and activities that engage participants in a remote learning environment. We sometimes held virtual tours in public gardens, museums, and places that are inspiring or applicable to our mission. Lastly, to ensure consistency and a sense of normalcy for our program, 4 to say maximum 10 participants volunteer each Saturday to maintain Radical Living garden and harvest produce that was right. The program day is structured with garden time. Example of garden time would be the youths would inspect the garden to check that everything is growing fine. They'll water it, cleaning. They'll pick up any litter that's on the ground, and then they'll settle in. Circle time includes going around circle. Each person says their name, age, or a similar question. Or we might say, where were you from? Or what's your favorite superhero? Circle time activities also include a breathing and mindfulness exercise. And we also explore our garden herbs with our 5 senses. And last, we include topics on nutrition and environmental justice, and we lay out the plan for the day. Activities include gardening, painting, germinating, jamming, or pickling, or pasta making. This was our first day of program during the pandemic. Some of the participants were on screen and others were in person at the program site. We decided that the best way to start would be to write cards to residents at the nearby nursing home to share that they are in our thoughts and prayers. The program, although a youth program, is very much an intergenerational program where participants range in age from 5 years old to 85 years old. While our focus is to equip the youth, the elders in the community, particularly from the Anchor Church, have found ways to pass on their wisdom through stories and teaching, and also through listening to the voices and stories of the young people. Our day starts with circle time. We choose to sit together in circle because the shape creates a certain equality for all who enters in. Circles disrupt a power over dynamic and create a power with dynamic. The circle may have one or several facilitators. The circle is a time of seeing and hearing one another, practicing breath work and stretching, meditation and reflection, and teaching about the environment and our role in our ecology. Diana Rodriguez picture here with a greeting card she made. Worked with Radical Living as a Mennonite Central Community Summer Service worker last year. Diana found a small outreach to skateboarders called Skate for Jesus, and recently she was hired as executive assistant to the CEO at the Bowery Mission, a Christian social service agency in New York City. Modeling leadership and developing leaders is central to the work of Radical Living. This is an ex-participant just writing card. Thank you, stay safe, and happy summer. The young people, after the circle time, the young people then tend to the plants. Whatever produce is ready to be picked, we incorporate into the meal for that day or for the following week. The raised garden beds were made with the support from an HGTV host. Her mother happened to be a member of the Anchor Church and learned about the work of RL. The host is a female and a woman of color, thus overturning certain preconceived ideas of who is handy. Not only did she help us build raised garden beds, she also provided inspiration to the young people that you do not need to fit any mold or anyone's expectations. You can become what you desire so long as you do the work, gain the skills, and build the necessary professional and personal support networks necessary. The young people learn to make simple meals such as salad, pesto and pasta, jam and pickles, and sometimes for dessert we'll do a banana bread or chocolate cake. The favorite beverage is mint leaves from the garden steeped in hot water and a little honey for a delicious mint tea. All the youth enjoy making meals, but when it was time to eat food, some were reluctant or choose not to eat the food. However, with understanding and encouragement and knowing that their palate might need to just adjust to more natural or organic food, we continue to encourage and support the young people to acquire desirable palate for healthy foods. Last summer, Reverend Dr. Lisa Williamson, pastor of Calvary Fellowship AME and retired pediatrician, instructed us how to make a quick, nutritious salad to keep us thriving and healthy, especially during the pandemic. And she guided us in a conversation on the importance of physical, social, and emotional health. Reverend Wilson's guidance scripture is Luke 12, verse 48. When someone has been given much, much will be required in return. When someone has been entrusted with much, even more will be required. Because our program is intergenerational, sometimes we might have parents or grandparents attend the workshop and help us out as needed. A young participant shares a picture of the food color wheel that Reverend Lisa talked about with her peers who were online and who were also making salad at home. At the end of the workshop, participants sit in a circle to talk about the importance of eating well and how using the food color chart is a great guide to healthy food choices. This picture is from a few years ago. And here we're visiting a community garden to learn what else can be grown and who else is farming in Brooklyn. Visiting other community gardens with the young people has helped to build community. Often gardeners from other community gardens make a point to stop by the Saturday program to greet the young people, share some of their produce, and see how our garden is growing. We are pleased that Brooklyn Grange, the largest rooftop garden in the world, is located in our borough. We try to visit once a year for a tour and perhaps a workshop. Last year we weren't able to visit, but hopefully this year we can. At a workshop at Brooklyn Grange, we learned to make wildflower seed bombs. Seed bombs are the main weapon guerrilla gardeners can use to spread flowers in bare spots, creating pockets of beauty and habitats for pollinators. Gardening without permission is another way of describing these activities. Not strictly legal, but filed away by the authorities under the category of What's not to like? Ever since this workshop, we've started our season by making seed bombs with the young people and then walking around the neighborhood looking for bare or desolated places that would benefit from some floral beauty. Another favorite activity is the pickle palooza. During cooking workshops, kids learn not only about making a meal, they also learn about concepts related to science and math. For example, they convert measurements and compare fractions. In addition, they learn about mixing ingredients to get a specific taste. Lastly, it teaches them executive functioning skills like time management, being prepared before starting a meal, focus, and keeping track of what they're doing. Here's a pic of the proud picklers. While the Pickle Palooza is a fun activity, the annual Jamboree is also a major highlight. For online programming, some programs offerings included the Art of Black Lives Matter, a tie-dye class, financial literacy workshops for young and grown people, a workshop to build a bird feeder, a seminar on social media and safety, and an end of the year talent showcase. These are some of the artists that we discussed on our online workshop. Radical objectives for the coming year is basically to partner with at least 3 like-minded environmental justice organizations, such as Green Faith, Brooklyn Rescue Mission, Freedom Farm, local churches. This is to bring environmentally conscious practices to churches in Bed-Stuy. We also would like to educate 25 young people about urban farming at 2 church sites, and to have weekly learning sessions, each with a group of youth, to bring you to Freedom Farm to learn about sustainable farming practices, and to do outreach to explore partnership with other non-Christian FBOs. This is it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Vonetta. I think we have time to show the video if you'd like. Luke,
Sure.
that away.
Yeah. This area is called Bedford-Stuyvesant. It's a predominantly African-American neighborhood. I guess the demographics, it's changing because of gentrification. But I did grow up in Bedford-Stuyvesant, so that's how I'm connected to this neighborhood. So the Summer Youth Program is a very simple model. Basically, we look for churches that have empty land and a kitchen. And we use that empty land to start an urban farm where we teach kids how to urban farm and educate them about the benefits of eating healthy food. We use what we grow from that garden to teach them simple meals. It's a full summer immersion program for them.
What's your favorite part of the summer program?
I think my favorite part would be maybe like where we do like this jamboree and we all make like homemade jam. Last year I made strawberry jam and a lady came in and like gave us like a whole tutorial on how to make the jam, and then after that we eat and like get together and just talk.
The last 2 years on one day we made jam. Once we make them, we take them home. That was the best part.
So this is where the garden is. It's a very small space. We grow a lot of things here. We grow thyme, we grow onions. We grew okra last year as well, mint We have the mints, they're growing wild. We grew rosemary, we grew tomatoes, we grew strawberries, and it's usually in abundance because, you know, people usually say like, oh, these are like really small boxes, you know, like what you can get from it, but you get a lot of produce during the summer.
How long have you been participating in the Radical Living Summer Program?
For 2 years.
What is your favorite part about the program?
Really like putting the seeds into the garden, like into the soil, and really making like the fruits and the vegetables. I never really used to be good with plants, so I actually learned that sometimes plants actually need their outside time with like sunlight. Because honestly, I would just put my plants inside my house and water them, and that's it. But I didn't realize I actually need sunlight.
How did Radical Living come to be?
I went to this training. That's how I met Dennis Higgins. Dennis and I just connected, and we decided, hey, let's do this.
We have space. These guys wanted to be involved with churches and with bringing in food and gardening and that kind of thing, and doing it for the community and for young people. We certainly have young people at the church, in the community, and we had space, you know, and a willing pastor, you know, so it all worked out lovely. On Saturday mornings at 11 o'clock, we're just there and we gather together and we sit down, have a moment of mindfulness, a little discussion, you know, about some of the issues of the day in the environment or the community and that kind of thing, to kind of just get them thinking a little bit. And then we get to the gardening, you know, or whatever the activity is going to be for the day, whether it's making pickles or making jam or just eating pizza. But we have fun.
What is your favorite vegetable or fruit that you grow?
We grew strawberries, and I love the zucchini.
The cucumbers. I'll say cucumbers because I really like cucumbers.
Well, my favorite vegetable is tomatoes, right? And we didn't grow tomatoes yet, but we did grow zucchini, and zucchini tastes good. And we made zucchini bread. I ate zucchini before, but when we put it in bread, it just tastes better.
The kids don't have like healthy food options. Like if you go to the corner store, which is called the Bodega in Brooklyn, if you go to the store, you'll see like a lot of sugary snacks. So we're hoping that by teaching them how to make food from scratch, we can change that conversation or change that health issues that's impacting African American communities. So that includes field trips, and that also includes like taking them to different farms, urban farms around the area, and seeing what people are also growing there, and sometimes even helping those people to maintain their gardens.
We went to Vermont for a week. Well, it was a farm, and we got to do like activities throughout the week. And basically, we got to like milk cows and take care of the animals. And then we have like, you know, days where we play games and stuff like that. And this time we got to see a cow give birth. The wait was kind of long, but it was worth it.
The favorite part was really when I had, when we was going and we started seeing all the animals, and the house looked really nice. And also the store. The store had the type of milk and the type of food, and it tasted very good. The honey, it tasted really good.
So in Brooklyn, you have a lot of churches that have kitchens and space that's not being utilized. So we're hoping that if we connect with churches like those, that we'll be able to use those space to teach kids about gardening, about making healthy food choices, about the environment, about social justice issues. So our vision is to connect with other churches and just use that space, which is not being used at all. It's basically underutilized.
We are a faith-informed community organization, and we really operate through the lens of our Anabaptist experience. So even every program day when we gather in a circle, and we often have a practice of stillness or deep breathing and just different exercises to kind of cultivate a deeper sense of awareness, a deeper sense of inner peace. We also do it by actively working toward peace in our communities through our relationships with one another, also through marches and protesting, and equipping the young people to understand that they are agents of social change within their communities. We're not doing simply a charity or a service for them, but seeing that the kingdom of God is within them, that they have great eternal value and value in this world to make change. So us just helping them to receive the skills and be deeply equipped to be those change agents.
Every summer I'm like, oh, this is like so tiny, but the amount of food that it produces, it's insane. And some of that food we use it for the soup kitchen. You know, we just give it to the soup kitchen so they can use it to feed the community.
And the kids are just delightful, and it's amazing to see how they grow and mature and develop and become interested in things, as I'm sure you were able to see from talking to them.
Do you imagine having a garden of your own one day?
Yeah,
What
like
would you grow?
I would grow definitely potatoes, tomatoes, carrots. I can't grow bananas because he said the area wouldn't like fit the climate, I think. And also I would grow some flowers because I like the green area. It looks nice. Because normally always like dull. And when I turned around the corner where we was coming here, I was like, Data, look, it's Greenland. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Vonetta, for sharing with us and sharing that video as well. I feel very inspired. I feel very excited for fresh food, fresh produce coming in the next seasons. I also really want to participate in one of those summer events with Radical Living.
Yeah, we would love to have you here, Nicole.
We'll chat.
Yeah.
So we're going to go into a time now of Q&A. So anybody is welcome to ask any questions that they might have. And I hope this is okay, but I do know we also have Jason on the call who I believe is a co-founder of Radical Living as well. Is that right? And so if he's interested or willing and feels inspired to respond to any of the questions as well, say you're welcome to do that too. But yeah.
And I also want to mention that Denise Higgins is also on the call as well.
Great. So one question in the chat here is, how is your programming funded?
So our program is funded through different organizations. We don't get a lot of funds because we're a small program, but we do get support from one particular person every single year, and that helps us with supplies. And we also get support from some Mennonite organizations that keeps us going.
That's a good question. I feel like I'm always like, my brain never goes to the funding side of things. I just get inspired and want to run with it, but you need money for these kinds of things to function.
You do.
And I would say, and a lot of the work is really done through partnerships and relationships, through Calvary Fellowship, where we that hosts the work, and then Freedom Farm, which is 60-acre organic farm about an hour and a half north of the city. And just having these relationships are real resources that help the work.
Other questions? Oh, yes, here we go. Do you have plans to enlarge? This could involve many kids.
Yes, Melissa, that's a great question because that's something that we think about every year. But in order for us to enlarge, we need funding to pay for to pay the staff, or maybe to pay the host site that'll be hosting us. So that's been something that we think of every year, but we haven't been able to pivot to that as well. But that's something we hope to do in the near future.
One question that I had as you were sharing, and specifically since this is a series where we're thinking about the connections of climate change and racial justice, I was curious how you would describe food justice as being connected to addressing climate change. And I know that's a big question, but I'm curious how you would describe that.
It is a big question, and it's I guess it's kind of complicated, but not that complicated. So what's happening with some of the farms, the soil is being depleted and changed due to climate change. So if you don't have land that's farmable, you're unable to produce food. So that's why it's really important to us in urban places to learn about urban farming, because we want to be able to mitigate any such crisis.
I see James' question about, can you have chickens in New York City? It's a great question. I know I used to work for a small organization in the Bronx called Youth Ministries for Peace and Justice, and they had some roosters running around that neighborhood, I remember. I don't know the legality of it at all, but I do know some community gardens do have chickens, so it is a possibility in New York.
Yeah, and I think Denny's she always talks about having chicken there in the churchyard.
I would absolutely love for us to have live chickens in the yard. However, trustees being who they aren't generally very excited about the idea of having, beehives, live chickens that could get loose and maybe annoy the neighbors. But I do believe that chickens, at least hens, are legal within the city limits. Just that you can't have a rooster because, they crow at sunrise.
They also don't lay eggs, so I think you should stick with hens.
Right on.
Any other questions? Feel free to unmute yourself or type anything into the chat.
Have you had any of your participant kids grow up to be farmers or get involved in your group as leaders?
Well, we currently have one online with us, Peony. She's up at school. Peony, did you just leave, or oh, you're there, right there?
Yeah, I'm right here. Yeah, so actually I've been with Radical Living since its conception. So this was about 5 summers ago. And from the beginning, I've been kind of involved as more of a leader in the situation because I was the oldest at pretty much all the times that we've done had our program in the summer. Each year we kind of get new people, we kind of lose some people, so it goes in and out. But I've been in consistently enough to know that I've always kind of assisted Vonetta and Jason in anything that we needed to do. Any trips that we went on, I would always help with that. in the last year when we had to pivot and move on to Zoom, I did assist a lot, and Denise is always there with us too. I always communicate with Denise and them. And then we got I cannot remember her name right now. She's newer to the group over the last summer, but she also came through, and I do tend to have to sometimes be involved in the meetings where they make decisions and then help execute them for the kids.
Thanks so much. It's great to have you here. I saw another question came into the chat from Brenda and Wayne. In my experience with school community gardens, vandalism was a problem. Have you encountered that? And if so, what was your response?
Well, thankfully, people are generally respectful of the church yard. So, and we have very secure locks. So we haven't had that problem. The most will be that people will allow their pets to poop outside on the sidewalk, you know, and not clean it up. And so we have to be involved in that process. But that's as deep as it's gotten thus far. Thank God.
And I just want to add too that our garden is open to people, whoever wants to take it. It's just not for people who are part of the church, or it's not for the participants. It's for everyone. So we always like encourage people to take and to participate in the program. So yes, I don't think there's any need for vandalism in this situation.
Vines grow outside of the gate and people are free to pick whatever they can. And whenever they see us in the yard, we say, here.
So we'll take this question and then we'll maybe have time for one more. Wondering if there are other spaces, other areas that have been turned into community gardens, such as vacant lots beyond church properties.
There was a really big space, a big corner lot that had gone kind of vacant. It was part of a much larger lot. And I don't know, Denise, you might remember better than me. It was the first or second year, probably the first year. And we went in and we really cleaned it up and helped to transform it into more of a community space. And now it is a community garden for the whole community. We still anchor ourselves at the church, but we try to stay connected to all the churches or all the gardens.
And also, as Vonetta mentioned, gentrification is such a thing in Bedford-Stuyvesant. So if you see a vacant piece of property, the developers have seen it too.
We'll take maybe one more question if anybody has something right now. Have some high praise coming in the chat here. It's really wonderful to have so many people on this call who have been a part of the program too, outside of Vonetta and Jason. Nice to hear from you all too.